Greetings, African family. This is Brother Dulani, and I'm back at you with another episode of Clear Thinking with Brother Dulani. Now, my people, I would like to discuss our situation today. I would like for us to have an understanding of how do we get to this situation we're in as African people. How did we get here? What has been the dynamics that has gotten us in this position? When we look at our situation around the world, and I must say it is a mixed picture because we have been through a lot historically, and we are still recovering from the impact of what has happened to us in the last 500 years. Now, I would like to say this, that in order to have an understanding of where we are today, and our situation today, we got to understand what we have been through as a people. And now, in the last 500 years, we have been impacted by what we call the Mahangamizi. The Mahangamizi is a Kiswahili term, which means the continuum, the intentional continuum of the genocide of our people, which is the chattel, colonial, and neocolonial enslavement of African people and domination of our people, and the continuum of such of a policy and a program against our people amount to the genocidal attack on African people over the last 500 years. So yes, so what we are in right now is what we call the Mangamizi, and we're at the neo-colonial phase of the Mangamizi. So a lot of what we are going through right now, and we see now our people are operating, is from this neo-colonial paradigm, where we have leadership that has pretty much been groomed during our colonial days. The whole system that we're operating under was actually cultivated during our colonial days. But I think we also have to go back and see the leadership that emerged out of our enslavement and the leadership that emerged during our colonization process, and look at the mindset of that leadership, which was a Judeo-Christian mindset. That was the prevailing ideology at the time. And this ideology, this thought process, was a pro-European thought process. It was not an African enabling process. They were not committed to the Re-Afrikanization of African people after our enslavement had taken place. So then we had a whole population of people that grew up, particularly in the Caribbean and in South America, who were not reintroduced to the African culture. We have to just, for the majority of us, have to make it up and piece together as much as we can by ourselves, because the standard leadership was not pointing us to Africa. They was pointing us to the Europeans, and the European is where they get their cue from in terms of cultural norms, the standard of beauty, how to speak and how to conduct the mannerism. So a lot of that came out of that grooming process, where African people and children were groomed to become clones of European people. And it has to have a devastating effect on us as a people. But now a new leadership has emerged, and even along those time and those experiences, we had voices of African liberation. We had voices that were speaking to Africa. And we must mention, for instance, coming out in the colonial era, in the neo-colonial era, early days, the voices of the Rasta, they took the best of they could. They took the Christianity and they mixed it. They cling on to the idea of 12 tribe and that whole narrative around resisting the Pharaoh and resisting Babylon and pointing us to Africa. and we had Marcus Garvey that came along and pushed us towards Africa. So that helped to rebalance us in a sense, to look to Africa. But the leadership itself, who was in control of our school system, they were not pushing for Africa in our society. They was not pushing for us to embrace our African self. And I think that has had a devastating effect on us. Even though many of us and some of us are, relatively, functional and doing well, you can see if you go into the Caribbean, there's some nice houses, nice cars, and, nice landscape places where, many of us are doing well, and we have to give credit for that, that not all of us are suffering, but, many of us has been left behind. But one thing you would notice in terms of the cultural shape of our people, that has lagged behind the material development. And that's something that we have to look at as a people, because, if we are to grow and to be who we are and to be a people that are self-determined people under the principle of Kuji Chagolia, which is self-determination, we have to reclaim our African cultures. We have to reclaim the best of African culture, that which is practical, that which is usable for us today. And our value system, our wisdom system that we had in Africa, we can bring those things back. And in some of the practices and the customs, especially taking care of our elderly and having respect and manners for each other. I mean, these are quintessential African values. But, and even the principle of Ubuntu. Ubuntu has been a good principle for us, which means that I am because we are, and because we are, therefore I am, which are connecting you to me and me to you. If I arm you, I arm myself. If you arm me, you're arming yourself. So we're intricately bind together, and we have to protect each other, because if we harm any one of us, we are arming ourselves. So that's a fundamental principle that we can incorporate, and some have went further, we have the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, which need to be looked at as a people, as an African family, and possibly instituted in our school system. Because the neo-colonial leadership are not necessarily geared towards re-Africanizing the population. And that is where we start to look now towards the idea of reparation as a people. Because we have been damaged psychologically, culturally, we have been damaged economically, politically, and organizationally. And when you look at the state we are as a people, we're in need of repairing. Because we cannot keep maintaining a system where only a few is benefiting from this neo-colonial paradigm that we're in. We need a system where all the people in our countries are benefiting from the development that's taking place. And all our people must be involved in the development. And the repairing of our people is very essential, that we get engaged in this idea of repairing ourselves, because self-reparation is very important. There's a lot that we can do as a people to repair ourselves while we fight on the international and political level to demand reparative justice from those who have harmed us, those who have damaged us. They will be held accountable for what they have done to our people. But we can hold ourselves accountable, and we can hold our leadership accountable for steering us into our African culture, into a process of re-Africanization. That is something that our leadership can do. That is something that we have to compel our leadership to do. We can compel our leadership to institute the 7 principles of Kwanzaa within our school system. They need to be able to teach our children about Umoja, Kuji Chagolia, Ujima, Ujama, Nia, Imani. You know, see, about unity, cooperative economics, self-determination, faith. You know, we can push our leadership to institute these things and push African symbols and African languages in our school system to empower our children to be the one to carry our African culture forward. Because if we don't do that now, 50 years from now, our children will be the carrier of European culture. They'll be advancing English culture, advancing French culture, advancing Portuguese and Spanish culture into the 22nd century. And African culture will be faded out. We have to make sure we preserve our own culture. And as well, it helps to heal our mind and heal our soul and restore our spirit. We have to bring back the teachings of our ancestors, the honoring of our ancestors, especially those who have fought for our liberation, especially those who have paved the way, who have enlightened us, those great scholars who have came to teach us and open up the way for us to begin to challenge this neo-colonial paradigm. So at the core of my message is about us taking responsibility for our liberation and to push our leadership in this day and age to don't give up on our liberation struggle. Don't turn your back on your ancestral struggle. It is very important that we remember that millions of our people are still living in destitute, in deplorable condition. Millions of our people are homeless. Millions of people don't have the basic necessities of life. If you are listening to this broadcast and you happen to be one of those fortunate few that have been able to make it, you're fortunate. But the vast majority of our people out there are catching hell under this present system. And we need to be aware of that. And we need to know that we have a historical duty to stand up for our people, to demand the elimination of all type of poverty and destitution amongst our people. The liberation is to be able to provide food, clothing, shelter for all our people, medical care, quality, proper education, to entool our children, to equip them with the highest level of science and technology so they can be prepared for this modern era. We cannot give up, and we cannot take it serious. We cannot take it lightly. We cannot take our situation lightly. This is very important, my people. This is very important. When we look at our condition in the Caribbean, when we look at our situation in South and Central America, even in North America, on the continent of Africa, in Europe, African people are pretty much at the same level. Where we are at the bottom. Our children are not performing the way they should be performing, by and large. We have some super talented amongst our people. We know that. But we have to find a system that can bring the majority of us up to get us right. And that is, I think, it will be the reparation process, the reparative process. And particularly in areas where we control. And I will always come back to that theme. Territories and areas that we are in control of. We should be setting the agenda. We should be creating the narrative and creating that paradigm that we are going to operate in. They're going to reflect our interests, what we want to see happen for ourselves. We should be committed to making sure that there's no one amongst our people that are in need of food, the very basic necessity. We should be committed to make sure that every adult get a piece of land where they can build a home for their family. That should be a rite of passage for every African that's born in any territory that we are in control of. A piece of land, even a plot, an acre, whatever. We can do the mathematics. But we have to be committed to this. This system that we're under is it is essentially catering for the few. That in order for the many to work, we must also sit back and cater for the few to survive, for the few to profit, for the few to be the beneficiary of the great mass, the work that the great masses of our people are producing. That kind of system, it only benefits only a handful of people. And that's the system that we have inherited through our colonial experience. The system of capitalism that is managed by imperialism. That system is for the few. It's a system based on individuality, where only the individual counts. We need a system where everyone counts. And that's where you come in, my people. Don't be afraid to challenge these people. Don't be afraid to challenge the neocolonial system. Get involved. Get involved in the economics and the politics of your community, in your local council, in your local area. Take leadership. Inspire leadership. Support leadership and organizations that are committed to doing the work. We have to organize. There is no progress without organizing. We have to be committed to our own liberation. We can't leave it to others to do. And I know sometimes it's difficult, but we have to do it. And these little broadcasts that I'm doing, these are just introduction. I will be going into deeper in my analysis, but I just want to get a little background, a little clarity so we understand where we are. Because I am here as a Pan-Africanist, and I have a little experience. I don't have all the answers, but I've been blessed to be affiliated with some great minds, some great people over the years, and I'm hoping that I can share it to you in a clear way. I'm not coming to you with no spookism. I'm not coming to you with no metaphysical argument, with no supernatural argument and telling you about these, space age argument. No. Ultra space out argument. No, I'm coming to you with clear thinking. And that's why I named this podcast Clear Thinking with Brother Dulani. And I welcome you on this journey with me as we dig deeper. And I want to thank those who have been with me on the journey so far. This is about our fourth broadcast, our fourth episode so far. And I'm hoping that you can benefit from this. And I do want you to like this podcast and share it and subscribe to this media, this platform, and comment and engage. Let me know if you are in agreement with the things that I'm saying. Particularly the need for to take control of our liberation, the need for reparation. And that is a big issue that I will be discussing as we move forward, the issue of reparation. We're going to go deeper into this process. I'm particularly concerned in the reparation movement about the Re-Afrikanization of our people. How do we go about restoring our culture? Retaining the best of what we have accomplished so far, because we never stop developing as an African people, no matter where we are. But we have lost along the way many of our African retention. So how do we find that balance between, reclaiming the best of our African culture and maintain the best of that we have accomplished so far and merge that into something that is uniquely African? I think that's a challenge that we as a people will have to deal with. We have to come to terms with that. And I think that we have to make a decision in our education system to bring forward some type of Africanization process. And it may start with just the way we design our schools, the kind of uniform that our children are going to be wearing. Are we going to keep wearing colonial uniforms, imitating European school children? those uniforms was meant for European children, and we copied them in our colonial schools in the Caribbean and in many parts of Africa. Are we bold enough to say now our children should be wearing African clothes? We have tailors, African tailors, that can Africanize our school uniform for our teachers and for our children. We can do this. So these are some of the issues that we have to face with. And I'm going to pause this broadcast for now, and we'll come forward again and continue this. But I want to just give thanks for people for just listening to me, for taking this time out of your busy schedule to listen to me. And I take this very seriously, and I'm taking it very slow for now because I don't want to overwhelm the audience with too much information at one time. So bear with me, and I guarantee you that I'm going to be as authentic as I can be and be as honest as I can be, but we're going to be discussing these things together. And I thank you for joining me on this journey once again. And my name is Brother Dulani, and this has been Clear Thinking with Brother Dulani. Thank you for being on this journey with me, and walk good, my people. Mahat Otep, Asheo, respect.